Hey, if you're thinking about renting a Tesla, this is a Model 3 behind me in particular, so this is mostly going to be applicable to the Model 3. But if you've never driven one before and you're thinking about renting one, stay tuned. This video is going to be for you to find out just the basic things that you need to know before you get behind the wheel so that you're functional and confident when you get started. All right, so the first thing you're going to encounter are these funky door handles. So basically you just press in on this side and then grab with the rest of your hand. You'll see that the window pops down just a little bit. Now, once you get inside, you'll see that it kind of gives you I'm currently charging right now, so that's what we're seeing on display. But you will get a QR code, and if you set up the Tesla app and put in your, your payment information, if you ever have to use a supercharger, it'll make that experience a lot more simple. And then if you do set up the Tesla app by using the QR code that will pop up at the beginning of your rental, it'll add the car to your phone temporarily, and then you'll be able to use it at least for the duration of your rental period to unlock the car, to lock the car, check your charge rate and all that sort of stuff. So I do recommend that. That has been very handy and it worked great for me. Now, regardless if you set your phone up or not for the Tesla, you will get this little card key in this little plastic case, which is a little clunky, but it does fit in your pocket easy enough, I suppose. But you can use this to unlock and lock the car or start the car. So right now I have the car locked. You can see the mirrors are retracted, and so you just hold it up to this little thing here on the side, and you see it unlocks the car, and then you get in and you can sit this right behind the cup holders, and you're basically good to go. You don't have to do any of that if you set your phone up, so that's why I recommend setting your phone up if you're willing to do that. It also makes the charging experience much easier. Right, in terms of getting out of the car, there's an electronic door release button right here that you can press. It'll pop the door open, drop the window just a hair, and then you can get out. Now, there's a mechanical release right here in the front. So if you look right here where the window buttons are, just all the way to the front, at the bottom of this handle here, is a mechanical release. And that's usable if for some reason, the electric goes out or you lose access to this power button for some reason, and maybe this becomes non-functional. There is a mechanical release, as you would expect. So this is the one you're probably going to use pretty much all the time. And there's one on each door that's pretty much exactly the same. All right, so there are wireless charging pads down here, so it's really convenient to just set your phone there. But I will say your phone will probably blend in really well, and at least once or twice you'll try to exit the car and leave your phone by accident. So you'll get over that eventually. I know me and my wife did. But let's talk about some of these controls. So one of the first things that you do when you're in the car, this little button here, the car button on the lower left-hand corner, this is where you get in and can adjust everything. And most of the things that you're going to want to adjust right away are on this main menu right away. So setting the mirrors is pretty straightforward. Just click the mirror button, and you can see that it does allow you to adjust the mirrors using the little joystick button on the left side of the steering wheel. And you can choose a left mirror or right mirror. It's all pretty standard. But if I want to adjust the mirrors right here, I can go side to side, just as you would expect, or you can roll this button up and down, and that will have the effect of moving the mirror on the car, just the way that you would expect it to. So get those set first thing. If you need to move the passenger side one, click the right, and you do exactly the same thing. When you get it the way you want, just press the X, and you're done. You can also adjust the steering in much the same way. Click the steering, use the same adjustment button over here. So you can see I can moving this up and down, moves the steering wheel up and down, and right to left moves the steering wheel in and out. So you can get that to a nice convenient position however you like. And then once you're done, you can save that setting and then exit out of it. Then the other thing is windshield wipers. Right now you can just set those to auto, and they'll come on when the rain comes on, or you can adjust them individually. Now, once you're out of the control menu, let me go ahead and get out of the control menu here. On the bottom, you'll see also other options here, like turning the heat, climate control for the heat on, adjusting the temperature. You can just click on that, it brings that up. It's all kind of straightforward. Just leave it to auto and then use the little right and left buttons here to dial in how much cooling you want. And then if you do need to change how your windshield wipers are behaving, you can click on the windshield wiper button here, and it does bring up a little pop-up menu. And this is basically how fast are the wipers going to go. I'm just going to leave it at auto. All right, so that's kind of the basics in here. If you want to change pedals in steering, right under the car controls page here, you can go into pedals and steering, and if you want to change the steering mode, you can do that. If you want to change acceleration mode, you can kind of make it more relaxed by going to chill. I let you leave it in standard because I have to be honest, it's pretty damn fun. Getting onto a highway is very fun in this car. The instant torque is, well, let's just say it's something that you'll have fun with. Steering mode, I'm going to leave mine in sport, but you can obviously change that. Stopping mode is very interesting and very different. So right now it's on hold, as you can see, and that means when I lift the brake, it'll automatically bring the car to a stop, and then it'll be a complete stop, and it'll show hold on the display over here in the upper left-hand corner until you hit the accelerator again. Now, if you set it to roll, it'll just move or not, depending on if you're on a grade, but it basically does not hold the car in position, so just be aware of that. This feels like a little bit more of a natural. If you set it to creep, like a gas engine car, this is going to, when you take your foot off the gas, it will sort of idle or creep forward. So if you like that, if that's the way you prefer, I think you will actually get used to hold after about an hour of driving this thing. It does take some getting used to. The regen braking on this is probably one of the biggest things that you are not going to be used to. So when you think of it as merging the brake pedal into the gas pedal or the accelerator pedal. So when you press the accelerator down, you're accelerating just like you would expect, only probably more quickly than you expect. And as you pull the accelerator up, as you lift your foot, it will begin doing regen braking. So it's like applying the brake lightly. And the extent to which, like if you take your foot all the way off the accelerator, it's a fairly aggressive braking. And so if you're used to sort of pressing accelerator and then coasting, you're going to make your passengers sick because they're not going to like that stop and start feel all the time. So you're going to have to take a little bit of time to sort of concentrate and sort of relax your foot pressure on the accelerator when you want to brake, and you'll get the hang of it fairly quickly. But it's pretty cool, and I think it's actually very efficient. One of the things that I kind of like about this car, because if you buy one of these, or any other EV for that matter, that really reduces the wear and tear on your brake pads and rotors by a significant amount, because you're almost not ever touching the brake. Maybe 2% of the time, once you get used to it, 2 to 5% of the time than you normally would on a gas engine as far as using the brake. So pretty cool, but something you need to be aware of, and you'll figure it out pretty quickly once you kind of get the drive time under your belt. All right, once you've got the driver's position and the mirrors and steering wheel set up all the way that you want, the next thing is you probably want to know how to navigate. And this was something that we found a bit confusing at first, because we didn't have this little navigate screen here popped up by default, which I found a little bit surprising. And I made the mistake of going into the little car controls here and then clicking on navigation, and that just took me to like these presets. Didn't actually let me navigate. I tried to go to easy entry. That's just for finding functions in here, but it didn't actually let me do anything. So let me go back out of here. One quick easy way to get to the navigation window is to just from anywhere, like if I have that open, you can just swipe down from the top and it'll bring that navigation window back to the front. So that's something that wasn't terribly obvious for us, but just swipe down on any menu and it'll show the navigation. And then of course you can click on that and you can go to recent things, or you can type something in if you want, kind of the usual way. But the easiest way, like for example, if I wanted to go somewhere, like let's say I wanted to go to the supercharger, this button right here acts as a voice control button. So you press on it and you can give it a command. For example, navigate to the nearest supercharger. And then it gives me a list of all the nearest superchargers. You can see I've got some. The closest one is 4 miles away. So I can just select one and then it'll chart a route. You can see I've got 48% charge right now. And when you do set a destination, it'll show you the approximate charge at your arrival destination. So it'll take me 20 minutes to get there, and I will have lost 6% charge. I'll be at about 42%. So it shows you your time of arrival and the distance that you're going to travel. And of course you can end that trip whenever you want. But yeah, so that's the easiest way to navigate, and you could do that with any of the Disney things, you could say, or Universal. Navigate to Universal Studios. And you can see there it is. I can see it's 33 minutes away, 16 miles. I'd have 40% charge when I get there. Another thing that you can do here is if you want to kind of get a sense for where you are, like you can pinch and move the screen around like you might expect, just to see kind of where you're headed. And after a few seconds, especially if you're driving or at a stoplight or whatever, after a few seconds it will automatically kind of contract back to the more localized view like it's doing right now. So that's pretty handy as well, so you don't have to kind of hit recenter or anything like that. It'll do it automatically. Another quick thing, since I'm parked here, it's giving me this display. Once I start driving, you'll see that it'll give you little icons of various objects that it recognizes, like other cars or orange barrels or cones and things like that. But you can open the trunk from here, you can open the frunk from here, and you can also lock and unlock the car. If you click on this little tiny lightning bolt icon here, it'll open the charge port. And by the way, you can do all of this within the app as well. All right, let's look at the control stalks here on the steering wheel. If you look here, you can see I've got reverse, neutral, drive, and then cruise control down here. And if you notice, park is actually on the end. So when you get to your destination, all you have to do is basically keep your foot on the brake and then hit park, and it will put the car in park just by pressing that button right there on the end, like that. Now, if you want to go drive, which is obviously something that you want to do, put your foot on the brake, right? And it tells you that the brake is applied. It's already now expecting to do something. It's also telling me I need to put on my seat belt, which I haven't done. But if I want to go forward a little bit, you click it all the way down. So you hear like a double click there, and you can see that we are now in drive. And it's in hold because that's how I had my braking set up. So I can take my foot off the gas, or accelerator in this case, and it doesn't move. So if I press just a little bit lightly on the pedal, I start rolling forward. All right? And then if I, again, take my foot off the accelerator, it stops automatically and goes to hold. Now if I'm going to go to reverse, that's at the top. So reverse, you lift up on the stalk. Again, you should have your foot on the brake when you do that. And then you go over here, and you can see it switches to reverse. I got the rear camera, and I also have blind spot cameras on the side, which is nice. And then you can back up. It's got a couple little trajectory lines there, which make it easy to position the car. And then put your foot on the brake, and now you're going to park by pressing the park, and you can take your foot off the brake and you're good to go. Now, how do you turn the car off? Well, you really don't actually have to worry about it. At this point, you just get out of the car, close the doors, and then you can use the app or the key card to lock the car. So I typically have found myself just using the app to lock the car. You'll hear a little chirp out of the horn. It's not a real obnoxious one either, which is nice. And that'll tell you that the car is locked, and you walk away and the car is basically parked. But that is not the most intuitive thing, because there's no button to press in here telling you to turn the car off like you would with a push button start or something like that on a gas engine. You just exit the car and lock the doors. It will shut itself down. Now over here on this steering wheel stalk, you can see if I press in here, I can get my washer fluid. It'll activate kind of the wipers. If I want to clean with that, just by using the little button here on the side, right? Kind of like you would normally expect. And then on the top, front and back, is your brights. So you can turn your lights on there. And by the way, these are all electronic switches here, not necessarily mechanical switches. So the stock does not hold its position, right? It just activates that function. This is also your turn signal. So if I want to just briefly signal, it's just a light press down there, and it'll stay on and click just a couple of times or blink just a couple of times. You want to leave it on until you're done turning. Press it to the second level, and it will turn on your turn signal. It'll give you an indicator on the dash, and it'll automatically shut off. But it doesn't click back into place after you turn. It clicks back into place immediately. So that's, again, a little bit different than a lot of cars. So I'm going to go ahead and press that up once to turn it off. But that is your turn signal like you would normally expect. So that's exactly like any other car that you're likely to drive. Okay, so I think that's kind of the basics for how the steering wheel stalk controls work. Wipers, lights, and turn signals on the left. Gear changes on the right. And park on the far right. So typically, Hertz is going to leave the cable either in the front trunk or the frunk, or they're going to put it in the back. And typically, it's probably going to be down here in this little storage compartment. So once you're in here, this is your level 1 charging cable. You can see it's got a standard 3-prong 120 volt connector on it, which is nice. It's going to charge very slow this way. But if you're staying at an Airbnb or a friend's house and you happen to have access to an outside outlet or in the garage, then you're good to go. In my case, I don't have access to the garage, but there is a nice little 120 volt outlet right there. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Now this cable is about 20 feet long, I would guess. So really here on the driver's side rear panel is the charge port. You can see we got the little blue indicator right there. Just plug that in, and that is all there is to it. Now you can go into the app, or you can go into the controls on the car itself and set the maximum current charging rate. Now when you're doing level 1, I think the maximum you're going to be able to get is maybe 11 or 12 amps. And so you just probably want to set that to the maximum, and you're only going to get somewhere between maybe 4 or 5 miles per hour of charging. So very slow way to charge. But if you're parked overnight and you're not driving it all over town, you know, during the day, you probably replenish all or at least most of the amount of charge that you're using during your normal driving. All right, something else that's probably worth just pointing out, if I go to the charging menu, you can see that it's set to 100% right now, and that's how it was when I got in it. Now, Hertz will say in their literature that they send you in the videos that they typically set it to 80%, but that was not my experience. So at this particular location, I've got it set to 12 amps, which is nice because if I have a 15 amp circuit, I don't want to trip the breaker. So 12 amps is kind of where it maxes out if you're using a level 1 charger like I've been doing here at my Airbnb. But I think, you know, 80% if you obviously own one is probably where you want to keep this in that 80-20 range to maximize long-term service life on your EV battery. But if you really need the extra range, I would dial it up to 100, just so you're limiting how often you need to stop at a recharge station. You know, and your mileage may vary on this, but yeah. So I've set mine to 80% or to 100%, so I can go ahead and get this charged. I'm currently at 48, and I'm going to creep very slowly again using level 1 charging. Get into some of the other details here of charging. I'm sure you can figure it out, but when you're renting one, you probably don't need to get too crazy into the charge planning and scheduling and all that stuff. You just kind of just want to make sure you have enough charge to do the things that you want to do, and let that be that. So at least with this particular Model 3 and the power supply I have at this house, which I think is a little low on the voltage output, maybe around 112 volts. Mostly you're going to typically find more like 120 volts. But in my case, set to the maximum charge rate for this level 1 120 volt connection, I was able to get about 20% charged capacity overnight. So over about a, call it 9 to 10 hour period. And that's mostly enough to get me through most of the driving that I've been doing. So, but you know, your mileage literally may vary. So just be aware of that. This is a slow way to do it. Let's find out what it's like to go to a supercharger. All right, let's go find a supercharger. I just turned off the air conditioning so you could actually hear me, because it says Florida, and even though it's February, it's still 75 degrees and sunny. So let's use the auto nav here. Navigate to the nearest supercharger. See what kind of options we got. Looks like 3.9 miles. Yeah, let's just take the first one and see how that goes. This will be my first time using a supercharger. I will bring you along with me. All right, so 47% should be our charge. We're currently at 48%. So when we get there, it should be about 47%. 7 minutes away, 4.2 miles. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so quick lesson just learned. If it just says Tesla destination charge, that does not mean it's a Tesla supercharger. You actually need to pick one with supercharger in the name. So we just got to this one and it's not really what we had in mind. So let's try again. We're gonna pick a different location here and go to this one.
Now turn left onto North Poinciana Boulevard.
Something that's actually got supercharger in the name. All right, take 2. All right, we found our supercharger. You do have to back into these things because you have a very short cable and your charge port is right there. So this one says 30-minute general parking. So we'll go ahead and open that up and see what happens. I do have my app already set up, so we'll see if this works. Not sure if this is long enough. Doesn't reach by about 3 inches, so I got to back it up further. The backup camera went out on me twice as I was backing up, so I couldn't see how close I was. All right, let's do this again. Take 2. Looks like the door shuts automatically when you put it in park. Alright, let's find out what happens. Alright, thought I would hop in here and just see. This is giving us our 30 minutes. We're at 42%, and we're charging at 138 kilowatts. So I do have my max charge still set at 100, so we're just going to leave it like that. This is obviously going to vary depending on where your supercharger is located, but you know, there's a Five Guys over there. There's an Applebee's over there. There's a supermarket about 10-minute walk, 8 or 10 minutes. But we've only been plugged in for 10 minutes here, and we've gone from whatever we were at before, like 44, 42%. We're already at 78%. You can see if you can, I can dial that in a little. We're now charging at 75 kilowatts. So yeah, for 10 minutes to be at almost 80%, it's kind of cool. That actually didn't take long at all. We really don't need to be here much longer than that, because Hertz typically doesn't want you to charge it more than 80%. And since I started with 100%, as I previously mentioned, I got a feeling they're going to charge me that $25, regardless of what charge level I return it at. So we'll find out. But we're already at 80%. So pretty cool. That didn't take long at all. If you haven't charged an electric car before, it's something to be aware of, is that once you get above 80% state of charge, like we're at 83% right now, the speed with which you're charging here will start to drop. It'll start tapering off. So just be aware of that. That last 20% will take a lot longer than the 20% preceding that. So it does slow down pretty precipitously as you get over 80% and start approaching 100%. Okay, and this is kind of interesting. If I click on the information here for charging, you can see I can unlock the charge port and stop charging. But more importantly here, you might be curious, it costs me just under $11 so far to charge. Now it's obviously continuing to tick up since I'm still charging, but already at 86%, and really only been here for 15 minutes and under $11 for charging. So cost, not bad at all. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead. We've been here for 15 minutes. I think that's good enough time as any. So for 15 minutes, I got all the way up to 87% from being in the low 40s. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to stop charging. And I just heard it click off. We're at 88%. I'm going to unlock that charging port. Not even sure if I needed to do that. Try not to pull a muscle getting out of the car. All right, just click. And that's that. All right, door shuts automatically, and we are off to the races. All right, so that wasn't painful at all. After just 15 minutes parking there, just having to back up far enough, you know, you plug the thing in, and we got 45% state of charge added in just 15 minutes. And we only paid like $11, actually a little under $11. So pretty easy, pretty painless, especially with the Tesla superchargers. Just got to make sure that you pick one, like I showed you on the menu, that actually is a supercharger. But it does have an adapter in the trunk that you can use if you need to use a non-Tesla style adapter. So that does work apparently, but I haven't actually tried that. So anyway, hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, thanks for joining me. Hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have fun out there.